Hello again and welcome to Spotlight, the interview show on RT. I'm Al Grinov, and today my guest in the studio is Dr. Candy Yumkella. The disaster in the Gulf of Mexico reminded us of just how destructive human industrial activity can be for the fragile natural environment. However, more than 1 billion people around the world still lack access even to electricity. Is further development possible without further destruction of nature? We'll be discussing it with the Director-General of the UN Industrial Development Organization.
In the modern industrial world, energy is key to building a strong economy. Countries are looking for new ways of energy production, hoping to boost development. But that comes with the risk of pollution and the possibility affecting climate change. The United Nations Industrial Development Organization says it's still possible to provide energy without the environmental headaches. Its Director-General Candy Yumkella is promoting the idea of green industry. At a forum in St. Petersburg, he urged countries to invest more in renewable energy resources. Experts say clean energy already makes up a quarter of the overall energy market, so there is plenty of room for expansion. Dr. Candy Yumkella is on Spotlight today to talk about how green industry could help save the planet.
Hello, Mr. Yumkella. Thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you for coming. Well, first of all, please tell me, do you think that the climate change situation really poses a bigger challenge to our common welfare than the economic troubles that the media is focusing on lately?
I believe so. I believe that climate change is one of the major challenges we face now. At least we have seen efforts, very rapid and decisive efforts, to mitigate the effects of the financial crisis, and indeed world leaders within a very short period have been able to stem the worst effects that we had anticipated of the economic crisis. On climate change, one cannot say the same. We know that we see more floods in India and other places. We know that we have droughts in Eastern Africa. From all the scientific work we've seen, we are not doing as much as we should for climate change, and it's a major risk multiplier in many domains.
But did the financial problems, the financial crisis, did it change the attitude of governments toward the climate change issues?
Yes and no. On the one front, the financial crisis has made it a little bit more difficult for governments to meet their financial commitments that they have made to solve climate change problems. But on the other hand, I believe that the financial crisis combined with climate change has created an opportunity for transformation. As you see with the financial crisis, we're rethinking economics a little bit. For almost 2 decades, we were obsessed with the financial sector, the financial innovations. Now suddenly we are back to looking at the basics of manufacturing and how we produce goods and for what purposes. You combine that with climate change, it's an opportunity for transformation, for new production systems that use less natural resources, for new production systems that will be more energy efficient and also would optimize the use of water. That's why we promote greening industry.
Mr. Yumkella, do you think that economic growth and the fight against climate change, are they compatible, or one is only possible at the expense of another?
No, they're compatible.
Yeah.
I have spent 3 months this beginning of the year traveling to oil platforms, to rural communities that are striving to have access to energy and so on. I have met companies that are very profitable as they are also very sustainable and have practices that are environmentally friendly. I believe they're compatible. However, to ensure that in fact we do more in adopting more environmentally friendly technology in production systems or to promote growth, we need better public policy. That I hear from a number of businessmen around the world. This is why even some businessmen are strong supporters of having a climate agreement, a binding climate agreement that ensures them that in fact we'll all play on a level playing field, that public policies will be structured in ways that are consistent across the world so that they could make those long-term commitments to investments and new technology that require long-term planning horizons?
Well, I'm not sure that we will be able to really fight climate change and really make a drastic turn towards making people more ecologically sensitive, ecologically friendly, society more ecologically eco-friendly. But what we have already did is we created a new type of crime, at least in the minds of the people. And in the minds of many people, there is such a crime as an eco-crime. And that can be anything from littering to huge oil spills. Spotlight's Elena Demidova has more on that.
One stray match, and the result can be thousands of acres of land devastated by fire. The California fires of 2008 saw 15,000 people flee their homes as forests were destroyed. It was apparently all down to a boy playing with matches. That's one of the more obvious man-made disasters. But for some, the logging of hardwood forests or even the use of contraception can fall under the title of an eco-crime. But no one doubts the consequences of some ecological catastrophes. In the last month, 2 oil spills have threatened some of the world's most fragile ecosystems. The Australian Great Barrier Reef has been badly scarred by a Chinese tanker running aground and spilling oil onto the delicate coral. Some of the damaged areas are completely devoid of marine life. It may now take 20 years before the reef returns to normal. What could be even worse is the oil slick from the rig which exploded in the middle of the Gulf of Mexico. Thousands of barrels of crude have been gushing out of the broken well for 3 weeks. Its effect on the tourist beaches and wetlands of the southern United States has still to be assessed. But the disaster has made Americans question offshore drilling. In the Gulf, there are 4,000 platforms pumping oil just a few hundred miles from the home of many endangered species.
Which conclusions should we make from what we just saw? Can the Gulf of Mexico disaster, for example, slow down the exploitation and the exploration of new oil fields on the seabed?
Well, first of all, it definitely sends a strong signal about corporate social responsibility. I think that's a major plus. Second, if you look at what happened after Copenhagen, I think that some countries and some leaders probably had their doubts, and also with the financial crisis, on the need for promoting sustainable development. I think this is a wake-up call that yes, we cannot do business as usual, that in fact we should be more conscious to look at the environmental safety of various production systems or drilling facilities. It was not long ago, you remember the slogan, drill, baby, drill. This should give some moment of pause and caution that in fact our desire for more energy must be taken with some caution, that if we're going to search for more energy resources, we better put sustainability as one of the key standards in looking at various projects. But looking at the total cost and externalities of such investments, not just the immediate cost, the potential environmental impact is one of those. Similar to why some of us advocate for a carbon tax.
Mm-hmm. As a matter of fact, what's your opinion in the UNIDO? Are the oil companies, well, British Petroleum was one, really responsible for what happened?
Well, a lot of blame can go around, but there's no doubt that whoever is involved...
It was an accident, I mean. Well,
it's an accident.
So you consider it an accident? You don't blame the oil company for, like, being greedy?
We have to wait till we see all the facts. Mm-hmm. We've seen some of the hearings already.
I'll put a different question. Yeah. Are you happy the way BP is reacting to this accident, what they're doing?
Let me put it this way. Many entities are reacting to this because the scale of this kind of a disaster, no one entity can solve it. You need state actors, you need volunteers, as we are seeing thousands of them. So there's a lot to be done. I think that from what I know, I'm not privy to all the details, but from what I know, I believe that everyone concerned is taking this very seriously.
Well, let's speak about modernization in developing countries. In underdeveloped countries, for example, in Africa, it's impossible without creating a manufacturing base. So can these countries afford green technologies?
Right now, a number of them cannot afford green technologies. But yes,
so the green continent, or the black continent, as they call it, it's doomed.
It is not doomed. There are still opportunities for them to be able, in fact, in some cases, to leapfrog. But this is why, even in the climate negotiations, the developing countries indicate that there is a strong need for having financial resources to help them take the green trajectory. The old slogan for many others that have enjoyed industrialization and lifting of the welfare of their people, the old slogan was, make money now, produce now, dirty and clean later. We are saying to the poorer countries, hey, we have one planet, we got to take care of it. So can we produce in a clean fashion? Can we generate energy in a low carbon way? To do that, they need the financing, they need the technology transfer, they need support from, in fact, those who have created most of the pollution. That's why in my advocacy, I talk about climate justice, but also energy justice.
Says Dr. Kandi Yumkella, UNIDO Director-General. Spotlight will be back shortly after a break, so stay with us. We'll be back in less than a minute.
Life in Russia would be so much brighter if you knew more about someone from first impressions. Meetfriends.rt.com.
Spending a year in Iraq as a military journalist, I saw so much waste going on with the U.S. contractors. They're just kind of wasting their time trying not to get killed for a year. I thought I'll walk the length of Utah. It would be about 500 miles. It would take me about 27 days, and we were going to publicize it and have people invited to come walk with us. I could hopefully speak with people, start a debate, have a dialogue instead of just chanting a slogan or waving a sign in someone's face.
Welcome back to Spotlight. I'm Al Grinov, and just a reminder that my guest in the studio today is Dr. Kandi Yumkella, Director-General of the UN Industrial Development Organization, UNIDO. Dr. Yumkella, you are a frequent guest in Russia. You meet Russian representatives often. Does that mean that Russia plays one of the major roles in developing green technologies, or you're planning to make it play a larger role? What's the situation?
It's the latter. Russia is already playing a major role, but I believe Russia can play even a bigger role. And that's the challenge I threw to the parliamentarians in St. Petersburg. The question is, I know for sure, based on my chairmanship of the Secretary General's Energy and Climate Advisory Group, that in fact there is a green revolution taking place. I see it in China, I see it in Europe, I see it in the United States.
You see a green revolution in China? I've been to China approximately a year ago. I couldn't see the opposite side of the street in Beijing.
I tell you, China is trying to do a lot lot to go on the green trajectory. In 4 or 5 years, they are already the largest wind market. In 4 or 5 years, they are already the largest solar PV producer. They're doing a lot. However, again, it's what I said. The old system of produce dirty and clean later does not work anymore. So maybe it's out of realism. However, my point by coming back to Russia, we know Russia as a major scientific leader in the world, also in culture. My challenge to Russia is, do they want to be part of and reshape this new green revolution? Because it is happening. The United States in their stimulus package put 80 billion in green investments, almost 40 billion in R&D. When we look at the share of R&D in GDP, Russia has one of the lowest amongst industrialized countries, about 1.1, 1.5%. It used to be 2% before 1990. Russia has to go back up, because to make this green revolution really happen, to shape it and make it a real transformative opportunity, you need to invest a whole lot in R&D. Korea, for example, 3%. Their target now in the next 5 years is to make it 5% of GDP, a lot of it in green innovation. So my point for Russia is they have to assume that leadership role. Also, they have to support the developing countries. In fact, my speech this morning at Patrice Lumumba University was looking at Russia cooperation with Africa. Russia used to provide quite a bit of capacity building, training for doctors, engineers from Africa and elsewhere. I think that role still is open, because these countries need knowledge transfer, and I believe Russia can do a whole lot more. It's already doing a lot, but it can do a whole lot more.
Well, I love to see those sparks in your eyes when you're talking about it, but at the same time, we see that the oil prices are going up again, and don't you think that this fact may undermine the investment into clean, renewable energy resources?
Yes and no. It could if it creates another potential financial crisis. The jury is still out what really caused the financial crisis, but some believe higher energy prices may have been one of the triggers. At the same time, it may give the realization that for energy security, we must diversify into cleaner sources of energy. We must diversify fast. Because again, I see some of the interest in renewables and other forms of energy based on what has happened in the recent past with higher oil prices. Now for Russia, the challenge for Russia is in fact to move very fast in diversifying its economy, more into manufacturing, agribusiness. I was so impressed with what I saw in Tatarstan, the Greenland, the opportunity for Russia to go back and become a major agribusiness player in the world. So maybe what we need to consider here, and that's part of my own discussion here in this country, how do we get Russia investing back more in R&D? Supporting public policy that will incentivize businesses and entrepreneurs to go into new green innovation.
But is green technology an investment opportunity? You said an example, you gave us an example of the United States investing billions. But are these really business investments, or should it be state-sponsored?
It's both.
Both.
You need state.
So you can make money out of it?
You can make money out of it.
Real big bucks? I mean, which will make people really invest.
For sure. But let me emphasize this. You need good public-private partnerships. There's still a number of risks. There is still need for government to support R&D into breakthrough technologies. And I see a number of these smart public-private partnerships in Asia, now in the US, but also in Europe. The second point is you need state support to demonstrate technology, that in fact it works, to help build the institutions, but also stable public policy that you need in various countries. And I tell you, I know from bankers, I was just in London in February in a new energy finance conference organized by Bloomberg. There were over 300 funds managers there, and all their predictions show that this in fact is a booming sector. All major banks now have a group just focusing on green portfolios.
Listen, well, this is not the first time we're discussing it, and I feel that still your job is trying to drag businessmen, governments, businesses into green technologies, green thinking, like becoming environmentally friendly. So instead of dragging them, instead of pushing them into that, what are the incentives? Are these only moral incentives, or these may be like economic opportunities, or what?
You need a package. You need sound public policy that indicates government's determination to create a predictable market over a sustained period. And with your Minister of Environment, for example, I know they're working on such public policy in Russia. You also need what we call mandates, especially in the energy space. In other words, you need public policy that says to utilities, to power generators, that yes, 15 by so-and-so date, 5%, 10%, 15% of your energy generation must come from renewables. Mandates make a difference. It's making a huge difference in the EU and some states in the United States. So you need that, but at the same time, the third component is incentivizing. Feed-in tariffs, for example, made a huge difference in Germany, because people know that, yes, when you generate energy from renewable sources, the public sector is willing to support utilities to buy that energy at a certain price so that the market would develop. So it's a package of incentives, including investments in R&D.
Dr. Yumkela, I wonder if you will guess, if you may guess, what people in the streets of Moscow think, what's more important for them, technological progress or environmental progress? Spotlight's Katya Ilarionova has conducted the poll outside.
Hi there. Today I'll try to find out what's more important, technological progress which provides comfortable living or protecting the environment.
Nature is the first thing, while technical progress is something we can't survive without because it's hot-wired in our minds. We think of everything in terms of progress, yet we must fight for nature, that's for sure, against those exhaust fumes and pollution.
I think both nature and technical progress, because it would be no good to regress to the Stone Age. It's not good only to have concrete walls around.
I believe technical progress is more important. If it weren't for technical progress, I wouldn't be able to talk to you now. I wouldn't be able to use a cell phone. Nature is important too, but I vote for technical progress.
I think nature is more important because I want my child to walk on grass rather than on asphalt. He's begging to get out of town when he has to spend the whole year in Moscow.
I believe technical progress is very important. I am, for instance, a 100% city dweller, and I spent at most a couple of days in the countryside. That's why present-day city dwellers cannot live without technical progress. Modern people are very dependent on the urban environment, on public and personal transport, and amenities like hot water. And should all these go, we'd have a very hard time getting used to living without these things, at least at the start.
Nature is more important. I take interest in esotericism, and I know that natural vibrations are very good for people.
Al, I've got Evgenia here. She's got a question for our guest.
If our manufacturing industry turns green, won't it be a blow to our wallet?
Here you got it. People don't really care about the environment if it's gonna make things more expensive in the stores.
It doesn't necessarily have to make them more expensive.
But it will. It does.
Not necessarily.
Not really.
Not really. And that's why you need the innovation. I think the premise of the question kind of cornered the innocent citizens, as it were. It's not either or. It's both. We believe that part of the answer to solving the climate problem is indeed technological innovation. That's what technology did when we were worried about the Malthusian constraint to food security. Technology broke the barriers, and we could feed ourselves easily. It's the same with climate change. The solutions lie in breakthrough technologies. I give you two statistics. We're becoming an urbanized world. People are moving into cities. You need new transit systems. Second, we project already that by 2030, the demand for energy will grow by 40 to 50%. Already, energy systems are responsible for 60% of greenhouse gas emissions. You must innovate because energy demand will go up. You need new technologies that will be produce less carbon. You need new production systems that will decouple economic growth from more energy or carbon intensity. So it's both. That welfare they want is going to depend on how much we think fast.
When I hear it's both, it sounds like a catch, you know? Because it's always either or. When you say, I want both, you say, okay, take both, but it's a catch.
For
it's always
example,
a catch.
when you're doing smart grids today, to regulate the flow of electricity to high demand areas from less demand areas, it's not a choice you have to make. You need it.
Thank you. Thank you very much. And just a reminder that my guest in the studio today was Dr. Kandi Yumkella, UNIDO General Secretary. That's it for now from all of us here. We'll be back with more on what's going on in and outside Russia. Until then, stay on RT and take care. Thank you. Thank you very much.